My dear friends, this is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, and our explorations with respect to those works which might be found in this really splendid set. This is the 5-disc Blu-ray set release from Kino Classics a few years back, which is called Pioneers of African American Cinema. And so it has been my great honor and privilege to be able to go through each of the works that's found in this wonderful set, again, across 5 Blu-ray discs. And so today we are at a number of works that can be found on the 5th and final of such Blu-ray discs. And I say number because I'd like to focus our attention today on 2 works that can be found as part of the 5th Blu-ray disc here. And these are described as being from ZORA NEALE HURSTON, the first of which is given the title ZORA NEALE HURSTON'S Fieldwork Footage, and the second of which is given the title Commandment Keeper Church, Beaufort, South Carolina, May 1940. And so we have here essentially footage that has been found and preserved, which we understand was shot by Hurston herself for purposes of, well, I think we can talk about the particular context as given by the booklet as part of the set, and also there's a really great type of introduction that's part of the supplements where Mike Mashon from the Library of Congress speaks a little bit to the context of these particular works. So I'd like to take this opportunity to share just a little bit of my own comments about each of these works together in this video discussion. So that brings us to the first of these works. It's given the title here for purposes of the set, ZORA NEALE HURSTON'S Fieldwork Footage, and it's described as being an excerpt, and it's also described as being for the Blu-ray edition only. It's also described as being from 1928. And I think Mike Mashon from the Library of Congress also mentions how this footage, which is taken, we understand, from Central Florida area, in sort of woodland area, rural woodland area. This footage was taken probably around the late 1920s. And what this, we understand, is ZORA NEALE HURSTON going to this particular area in Central Florida and shooting using a 16mm camera, we think, shooting or capturing these particular on-site images of workers trying to load pieces of wood and logs and felled trees, and trying to load that and rope them onto particular carriages of these trains that we understand will take them, transport them out of this particular area. So it's in this rural setting, and we don't see we don't see hundreds and hundreds of workers per se. We see, in terms of this footage, we see a number of people on camera, but we don't see this huge operation. It seems to be, at least in the context of what we see, it seems to be a very maybe modest operation. There is a train that we see. There are some carriages that we see. We see the actual process of the physical loading, which seems to be a very a laborious type of task in terms of the weight, in terms of the actual largesse of the article that needs to be transported, etc. These trunks, as it were, the felled trees, etc. So this is the logging operation. But we also see, I think, a very intimate and a very direct type of depiction and capturing of this particular moment. So in that way, ZORA NEALE HURSTON is capturing this type of historical record, which is a fascinating one indeed. And also we see, or we get a sense of the real physical, the physicality of this particular work. But we also see the modest nature of the particular enterprise on display here anyway. Again, in this particular setting or surroundings of this wooded area, this woodland, this rural area of sorts. And so this is a glimpse into this particular world and this particular point in time and place in the late 1920s. And so in that way, this is a very valuable type of historical record. I think also another point that is brought up very, very astutely in terms of the essay, or in terms of the booklet, excuse me, and also in terms of Mike Mashin's comments here and elsewhere, of course, is that Zora Neale Hurston, in terms of her work, focusing in on these particular individuals in Central Florida, in terms of this footage. This might have parallels or links to things that we might see several years after the fact in terms of their eyes were watching God. And so that parallel, I think, is really fascinating in and of itself. It also reminds us of the multidimensional nature of the art of Zora Neale Hurston and her ability to observe certain human details and the like, and the idea of the context of the environment and setting, etc. And also her reminding us of her, say, filmmaking instincts, which are very, very strong indeed. So all in all, this is a really valuable artifact and document. And it's presented here in such pristine quality, so it's wonderful to have this here. So this is, again, given the title of Zora Neale Hurston's Fieldwork Footage, again described as being from 1928. And then the second work, which is described here, is given the title Commandment Keeper Church, Beaufort, South Carolina, May 1940. And I should point out that both of these works are described as being from Hurston, shot by her, and also they're described as being from excerpts. So they aren't necessarily these, say, documentary works per se, as much as they are this idea of surviving footage of things that were shot by Hurston herself. And so this is another example of that. But that takes away none of the power and none of the significance of these particular works. And it's a wonderful thing that they're being included, again, in the wonderful condition that they are found in terms of the presentation of this particular Blu-ray set. Now, this second work is approximately 15 minutes. The first is approximately 3 minutes. Now, this second work it's described in the title. We have footage of particular or specific, say, congregational activities that are taking place in what we understand to be this place called Commandment Keeper Church in Beaufort, South Carolina. And it is this congregation that are people are just engaged in the moment in terms of celebrating God and celebrating their community. And there's singing, there's also musical instrument performing, and there's also this type of festival atmosphere as well that's part of this wonderful celebration at church. And then we also have footage of some kind of maybe talk or sermon. The minister, we can assume to be someone in a minister type of role, speaking to the congregation, speaking to the group of people, both inside the particular, this certain, say, building, this church, and then also we have footage outside as well, the sermon being given or held outside, outdoors. And so there's a really lovely type of contrast that takes place in terms of the depiction of the indoors and then also the depiction of the outdoors. And a lot, I would suggest, is going on here in terms of the details. So, for example, we have the way in which this notion of celebration of God, there's a real joy in the atmosphere, in the air when one watches this. There's this, as I say, the sense of the celebration, and people seem to be happy and they are enjoying themselves, and the song and dance element is on full display, and it's a wonderful display, I should say. Now, I mentioned too that this set does a really great job in presenting these restored versions. The notes for this particular release in the booklet says that on page 71 of the booklet, quote, "This footage shot by Hurston in the Sea Island community of Beaufort, South Carolina, observes the religious practices of the Gullah people. The footage is accompanied here by field audio recordings by Norman Chalfin, etc. And he says, who wrote in the Endeavor, quote, "There was no electric power. Illumination was from kerosene lamps. Because there was no electricity, they could not effectively synchronize sound and image. In 2006, the footage was selected to the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress," end quote. And so that, I think, is suggestive of a number of things. So first of all, we have this idea of the power of the devotion and also the celebratory nature of that devotion, which is really, I think, very inspiring indeed. I mean, you can tell within the indoor scenes, the walls in the background of the minister or the minister-like person, it's seems to be, the walls are almost falling apart. The outer covering seems to be chipped away, and you can see the inside of the wall frame itself. So the walls seem to be somewhat there are parts of the wall that seem to be crumbling in a certain way, but that's not stopping anyone in the footage here from continuing to enjoy their celebration of God. And so that is, I think, a very inspiring thing. And that also is linked to this comment here, which is found here, about how there seemed to have been no electricity, but that doesn't stop anyone, at least when Zora Neale Hurston has her camera trained on them. So this is a really wonderful, inspiring thing. Also, the idea of the sound. Now, there's a point that also Mike Mashon makes in the supplement about how there was some issue about how the sound isn't perfectly synced up with the image. But that's okay. There is this sense of how this is capturing a moment in time or moments in time. So the fact that there's not always a true or 100% synchronicity between the sound and image, that's, I think, it doesn't take away from the beauty and breadth of this particular moment at all. On the contrary, I think it adds a sense of a solemnity and purity to the proceedings, which I find very inspiring indeed. And also there is, I also do like the idea of the inclusion of the sound, because the sound really adds this, there's this palpable spirit of energy, which is, you can see on screen, but then when you hear it, it's, my goodness, this is very, very powerful indeed. And so there's a sense of capturing something of the real and the genuine. That's something that is from this particular time, again, 1940, but it's something that maybe is would be difficult, if not impossible, for someone, say, like me, in the other side of the world, in a different time and space entirely, to be able to watch. But here I am, able to watch it, or at least a little glimpse of it, in terms of how it's presented here. Again, to the preservation of the camera eye of Zora Neale Hurston herself, trained on this particular community. Much like the earlier excerpt in Central Florida, here in South Carolina, we have her eye trained, I think, quite genuinely and quite lovingly, and also with a great deal of respect and a great deal of room for people to be themselves. This eye, through her camera, and preserved for people, generations to come to see. And so this is, I think, a very exciting and a very energetic type of depiction. And although we get only excerpts here, I think we can see the true power of this idea of cinema and capturing these moments of time that would otherwise might have gone forgotten had it not been for people like Zora Neale Hurston and others to be there to capture the moments. And so this is, I think, a very valuable thing indeed. So for anyone who is interested in a further exploration of the works, I would strongly suggest check out these two. As I say, they're described as excerpts, so they're not very long at all. These two works, again, described by the book as being footage shot by Zora Neale Hurston in these particular communities in the late 1920s and then 1940. I think you're in for a real treat indeed. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.